no, I've got mohair in my nose. The plague of all knitters is to be inhaling mohair at all times. Hi and welcome to episode 12 of Merry Little Makes. If you're new here, hi, I'm Mary. I am a fibre enthusiast based in Bristol in the UK, aspiring knitwear designer and lover of all things fibre. If you're returning, welcome back. Hi, nice to see you again, as always. It's been a little bit longer than I would have liked since I last filmed. I'm going to stop saying that really because it's just the nature of how this works, I think. But I've got loads of really fun stuff to talk about, and the benefit of having longer gaps is that I have more things to talk about. So I've got some really cool stuff to go through today. If you're new, my podcast follows a fairly standard format. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm wearing, which we'll get to in a second. I'm going to talk about some finished objects and talk about some whips. And then at the end, I have a chatter segment, which if you're interested, this episode is going to be all about Wonderwool Wales, which is a great fibre festival in the UK, in Wales, which I went to yesterday for the first time ever. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, my kind of honest review of the event itself, and also some kind of tips and tricks for attending a yarn festival. And some of the things I found with my own kind of personal, the way that I deal with social interaction and that kind of big crowded event space. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so just a quick note as we go on. I am way less used to doing this than I feel like I am every time I sit down. I think it's going to be really easy. So there probably will be some jump cuts here and there where I'm just cutting out segments of me just rambling or not remembering how to talk like a person. So if you see jump cuts happening more often than they might have done in the past, that's why. So finished objects. I don't have loads, I'll be really honest. I have been knitting quite a lot, and you'll see, but haven't necessarily been knitting super consistently on one thing. So I don't have very many, but I have one that's very, very exciting to show you. And then I have loads of whips, so we'll talk through those in a minute. So what I'm wearing, I don't have any knitwear on me yet, but that's because my first finished object is this beautiful thing. So if you watched the last episode, you will have seen my swatch, which is behind my head there. Oh, I hit myself. That's my little swatch that I made. This is the striped half and half triangles wrap. I think that's how you say it. I'll put it on the screen. By Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern, so I can talk really openly about how it's constructed, and a couple of things I will do differently on my next one, because I definitely will be making another one. I have worn this so much. Like my From My Journey shawl, which is the last shawl that I made, it's had so much wear. Now, it's massive. You can go on my Instagram to see more photos of it being kind of held up, so you'll see the scale, but it's really, really big. Oof. Oh, don't do that. Really big, and I love it. You can wear it all sorts of different ways. I'll be honest, it is a really good lap blanket because it's just so big. But because it's fingering weight, it's not super thick, so when I held it up, you might have even been able to see sort of through it. Maybe not in this light, but you can kind of just about see through it when it's held up like this. This particular version is knit up entirely in Holstgarn Super Soft, which is one of my favourite, very affordable, non-superwash fingering weight yarns. I have some cones up here, and then here is all the leftovers from this. I'll be honest, I haven't weighed it, but I will at some point, and I will probably put it on Ravelry because I'm really proud of it. I think it looks really good. It's probably the most like professional looking thing that I've ever made. I know there's a lot of chat in the knitting community about, you know, we're making things that they're allowed to look handmade, but I have quite a kind of minimal style, so I do like it that it looks really neat and tidy, and it's just really pretty, and it's a lovely way to play with colour, and yeah, very happy with it. The construction is also really straightforward. It looks much more complicated than it is. Basically speaking, you cast on here, so you cast on an enormous number of stitches over here, and then you knit garter stitch back and forth, so it's the whole thing's garter, which is lovely. I did German short rows rather than wrap and twist, just because I prefer them, but you can also do wrap and twist. And then you just knit one less stitch each row, and you leave all of these live double stitches if you're doing German short rows or your wraps. You leave them on your needle. Then you join in your second colour and keep going, and then you join in your third colour and keep going until you get to the end of the triangle down here. And then what you do is, starting at your original cast on end, let's see if I can show you, you resolve all of those German short rows or turns all the way up this diagonal and all the way back down again. And then the pattern, and I did follow the pattern has you then start at your cast on edge again, same exact spot that you started from before, and then you knit increasing, so picking up one additional stitch from that German short row diagonal as you go up, and then you're doing 2 rows, so a forward and back row of each colour alternating, and then you've got a block, and then this is all stripes up here. Now I will say, were I to do it again, I would do what Kat did with hers. So going from smallest to largest stripe on the second side nearly killed me. Like, it's a lot of knitting. It's a lot of knitting in here. I worked out that it's 260 something by 260 something square stitches, and it's like 70,000 stitches or something wild in total. So it's really a lot of knitting, although it's all garter, so it does kind of fly. This became unintentionally a kind of make along with Kat, Sarah of Sarah Green Knits, and Monica, and basically speaking, 2 of us have now finished. The other 2 are keeping going. There was no end date. It was just a nice thing to be working on together, and because we were kind of planning it together, it just feels like I'm getting a hug from all of them when I wear it, which is really nice. But what Kat did with hers, if you go and have a look, you can find it in one of her latest videos, is on the second triangle, instead of starting from the smallest point, she actually started at the other end and just cast on the total number of stitches, and then worked down and decreased as she went. So I think that's really smart, because basically it means that both triangles you're working from largest row to shortest row, so it's getting faster as you go. So the next one of these that I make, if I do a double triangle again to make it into a square, I will definitely be doing that, because I think it would really help. However, the next one I have planned is actually going to be one triangle, so it won't be a double layer of fabric, because as much as I love this, it's so big and it's very thick. So I'm going to put it on, and it will become what I'm wearing. So I fold it this way so that you have the diagonal going down the centre of the triangle, so that you can kind of see both sides, but it's really cool that you can change how it looks. So if you want to fold it the other way, you absolutely can, so that you've got all of the colour blocks on one side and all of the stripes on the other side. You can obviously make it much more multicoloured than I did if you want to. I'm very boring in my colour palette. I love mustard yellow and greens and neutrals. Yeah, I'm all about the earth colours, really. I do have a few quite notable exceptions to that, which you will see shortly when I talk about my whips. But yeah, so the way that I wear it most of the time is either I just wrap it around me with the point of the triangle at the bottom of my back, like a traditional shawl, which I'm not going to do right now, or I kind of gather it all up with the main point of the triangle in front, and then just hoik it round. And in the winter, or just when it's cold, especially when it's windy, like being able to just like put your face inside it. You can have it as a little hood if you want to. Oh, so good. So yeah, this is most of the time how I wear it, and I really really love it. But it's a lot. It's a lot of just bulk. So the next one that I make, I'm actually going to make a single layer so that it's the same triangle shape, but it will be just one triangle. The stripes are really cool and a really easy way to add in lots and lots of odds and ends as well. So the way that Kat made hers, one triangle is all one colour, so a solid kind of dark grey, and then the other side, we unintentionally have very similar colour palettes because that was just all the odds and ends that she had that she wanted to use. So hers is also lots of like greens and greys. And she rolled dice for hers, so she was using up lots of different odds and ends, and she rolled dice for which colour and how many stripes she would use for the second side, which I thought was really cool way of doing a kind of dice roll, chaos, random project, but keeping it within a colour palette, and because she had that one consistent dark side, it kind of ties everything together, which I thought was really lovely. So yeah, this is the half and half triangles wrap. Big fan, will be knitting more. I think I said before, I never really understood the hype of the half and half in the original version, which is just two massive triangles of one colour. I saw a lot of people make them, and I think the first person I saw was Amy Palco, and I was really impressed with it and thought, wow, that's amazing, but I just didn't really understand the hype around it. And basically speaking, it's the kind of project where it's the construction is so simple, but the possibilities are just absolutely endless to do whatever you like. So huge fan of this now. I really get it. I think it's probably going to become one of those projects where I end up just having one on my needles at all times as like an easy garter, don't need to think about it kind of project, while I've got other more complicated things on the go. So this is my only finished object, but I love it and it's a good one. I'm going to take it back off because it's actually really warm today. It's very sunny outside. The light may change because it's spring, and spring in the UK, if you're not aware, means we get all four seasons in a day. So we've had like blazing sunshine, and then hail, and then rain, and then cloud, and who knows. So the light might change a little bit, but there you go. That is my half and half triangles wrap, which is my only finished object this time, which is kind of strange. Normally I've got more to talk about. So we're going to go into whips. Okay, so moving on to whips. These are in no particular order because I've got lots. I thought I would show you my new sample. It's a very exciting one right now, as you can see. So for those of you who have been around for the Nesty socks, which is my most recent sock pattern, I'm really really proud of them. Everyone who's made them has sent me some very lovely comments about how much they enjoy them. Yeah, absolutely love mine. I wear this pair and my other pair all the time. I will definitely be making more. They're very easy, and they're quite meditative to knit because of the fact the colour work is so memorable, easy to memorise. So almost as soon as I had designed, in fact before I had finished designing the Nesty socks, I had also made an idea for a fully colourwork sock. So I decided not to make the cuff colourwork just so that it cinches in a little bit at the top, but you totally could if you wanted to, if you didn't need that level of like elastic and cinch. And you could do a colourwork and then put a little piece of elastic around the top if you wanted to go that route. That would also work. But again, much playing around, and I now have a very easy replicable colourwork toe. Toe up colourwork toes. Oh my word, they're here. Yes, so this is the start of my next sample of my body socks, which I have shown before. The previous sample I was experimenting. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen a story where I was talking about I wore them for as long as I could before they needed washing. to see as an experiment. Sounds really gross, but non-superwash yarn is actually wild in terms of how antimicrobial and it gets rid of odours, all the things. It's amazing. So yeah, I wore them day in, day out for quite a long time, and then my boots slightly broke on the inside, and I didn't realise that there was a quite big piece of leather that was like sticking into one very particular part of one sock, and it's literally sliced it open, which I was really upset about. So I need to do a little bit of work on fixing those, but they didn't disintegrate. It was a kind of extenuating circumstance, but it was a bit of a shame. The other one is completely fine, so it's definitely not that the socks themselves have just worn through. So yeah, I need to fix those. But this is my second sample of the body socks. I have almost finished writing up the pattern, so they will be available to test knit soon. So keep an eye on my Instagram, because that is where I will always do my calls for test knitters. I also now, kind of surprisingly, I'm at a point where I have a list of test knitters, because I have 3 sock patterns out in the world. And so I have offered for anyone who's completed a test knit for me before, they have the opportunity to join my future kind of early access, if you like, test knitting, only because it is quite a lot of admin doing public calls for testers. So moving forward, I'm trying to make the process a little bit easier for myself, because I have a full-time job. This is just a thing I do for fun on the side, as it were. So I'm trying to make things a little bit easier on myself from an admin perspective. Yeah, there will still be a public call, because not everybody will want to make these. They are colourwork. They are all over colourwork and toe up. So they're not as straightforward as your kind of typical vanilla sock. And also, they do have a charted pattern, like the Nessie socks also do, but the Nessie socks, once you've done 3 or 4 rows, you don't need the pattern, you don't need to look at the chart anymore, because it's just repeated, and it's very, very easy to see where you are. These, you do have to keep referring back to the pattern, because they have a leaf that it's not, there is a repeat, but it's quite a big repeat, and it's harder to memorise, I think. So they're a little bit more involved, but they are beautiful. I'm very proud of them. So yeah, not super exciting just yet, but mainly to let you know that the call for testing will come out, I think, probably in May. So keep an eye out for that. The yarn I'm using for this particular sample is more of my fantastic Cheviot Marsh from Whistlebare. It is not supposed to be a sock yarn, just to be very clear. I may make another sample for the actual pattern in more traditional sock yarns, but I do recommend non-superwash for these, because it's for colour work. They just grab onto each other and they start kind of felting together a little bit, which is actually what you want. And then this is Nervous Fibre 100% Corriedale in Buttered, which is also one of my absolute favourite yarns and colourways. So there you go. That is the body socks. Okay, next work in progress. Which one do I pick? I have lots. Okay, I'm going to talk about the popsicle sweater next. So, quite out of character for me, I saw some absolutely incredible yarn from a maker who used to go by Into the Crochet Corner, I think used to be the name. It is now Cheshire Yarns, I think. Again, I'll put it on the screen for you. She came out with a new colour, and my brain just went, that looks like the happiest colourway, I must buy it and make something out of it. I don't know what happened, because when you see it, this is not a normal colour for me. It's not a normal colour palette. Very much out there. So this is the yarn. First of all, it's white, who am I? And second of all, it's got all these incredible, it's probably really hard to see with this silly lighting, all of these incredible colour pops, little neon colour pops. The yarn is called Popsicle. This is non-superwash merino, 100% merino. Yes, 100% non-superwash merino. I had to remember if it was merino or BFL, but it is merino. And I'm just self-drafting a sweater. So this is where it's at currently. I'm obsessed. Look at it. Isn't it just the most glorious thing you've ever seen? So it's just a circular yoke with some increases. I have done a double folded collar, and it's got a little lateral braid around the bottom because I just wanted to try lateral braids and see what they were like. I really like it. And then I did another lateral braid, which I'm not sure if you can see. Oh yeah, another lateral braid around the bottom of the yoke, which goes all the way onto kind of the tops of the sleeves here. And then I've picked up one sleeve. You can see the absolute chaos. Oh, I'm dropping stitches. Chaos that is happening. But this was kind of the ultimate spontaneous project, if I'm really honest. I just saw it and my brain just went, that is the most joyful thing. I need to have it and make something out of it. So I have, and I am, and I'm absolutely loving it. What I've done, because I have this whole skein and then I have one more 100-gram skein, and I want to try and just use up every scrap of those 2 skeins but also not run out. So I've put the body on hold. I've split for the sleeves, did a little bit of work on the body, and then I've put it on hold on the cables it was on, and I've also got a barber cord in there on like the back so that I could try it on with the sleeves. And then I've just switched to knitting a sleeve. So this is this is something that I just do. I don't know if it's a useful tip for anyone, but if you're someone who knits sleeves using well, anything, but for me using DPNs, what I can sometimes find is that the sleeve kind of spreads out too far and then it falls off the ends of the needles, especially when it's stored. So I just have a little hairband. You can use elastic band, anything, or even just a piece of yarn. That just helps keep all the stitches closer together while I'm knitting around it, and it helps avoid ladders and things like that. So yeah, if you're someone who also finds that a bit annoying when you're working on a sleeve, little tip for you. So yeah, it doesn't have a name. I'm not going to be writing it up. It's just for me. It's just a very straightforward vanilla stockinette jumper. But I love it. It's going to be called the popsicle jumper because that makes sense to me. So that is whip number 1, and it's glorious. Whip number 2. Whip number 2 is very straightforward. So a very dear friend of mine requested a hat recently. Not as recently as I'd like to say. This has taken me a little while. This is my latest bus knit. For anyone who's been here before, I get the bus occasionally. At the moment I can actually walk, but I do also sometimes get the bus to work, and I like having a really simple project to knit on while I'm on the bus. So what I've done is a very straightforward 2x2 ribbed hat. So my friend requested a ochre, I think he said, an ochre hat, and he loves a very kind of tight-fitting beanie. So I'm actually just at the point where I'm going to start decreasing for the crown. I'm going to do quite a rapid decrease because he likes to have quite a snug fit. He also has a surprisingly large head, so it does stretch out a lot. But it should hug his head quite nicely, and if he wants to fold it up, he can, because it's just a straightforward 2x2 situation. This is being knit out of Stranded Dye Works Caramel, I want to say. I did have the thing for it. Yes, I did. Right here, look. Yes. So this is merino yak nylon, and it is in the colour Caramel. It is superwash. But that's also because it's a gift. I don't know if he's going to remember to hand wash it and all of those things. So yeah, it is a superwash yarn, and it does have some nylon on it, but it's actually also very soft and lovely. So yeah, that is a hat for my friend Charlie, and I just wanted to show you this because it's making me really happy. This is a little bag that Kat from Kat Weaver, previously Heather and Hops, made for me for Christmas, and it is the perfect size to put a single cake of yarn centre pull cake into, so that my yarn is actually sitting in here and then it just glides out beautifully. So that's a very satisfying thing, and there's going to be plenty of yarn left, so I'm going to probably put that into a pair of socks with the remainder. And it's also in a mohair don't care. Mohair no problems? Yeah, mohair no problems. This is also from Kat, from a long time ago. This is actually one of my most used project bags. There you go. So little simple 2x2 rib hat for my friend Charlie. I have a couple of other whips I'm not going to talk about. I have my husband's chaos socks, which are in here, which I'm still kind of working away on, which you can see more about in my previous episode. And I have a little kind of shawlette thing over that side, which I am also just kind of working on when I feel like it. But it's going to be a winter, something I wear in the colder months, and because it's getting warmer, I don't really feel like working on it right now. So, yes. Okay, nearly done. 2 more. So this, in this lovely white bin here, and the reason it's in this white bin is because it is not remotely travelable, so it's only living in the house. This is my self-drafted cardigan. Okay, I just need to make sure I don't pull the yarn too much. So this is knit up in unspun yarn. This is Newton in a colourway that I can't remember, Medvind maybe, which you obviously can't get anymore because that's the way that their colours work. So this is again 2x2 rib, very basic ribbed cardigan. I am currently working on a sleeve, which is very exciting. There will be a button band, so I'm going to do quite a big double knit button band all the way around once I've finished. And again, I've left the body on hold because I'm not sure how long I'm going to want it. So I know that I definitely want it to have full length sleeves. So I'm doing those. I would quite like it to have pockets. So again, I'm just using up, I'm going to try and use up as much yarn as I can, but I also want to make it as wearable as possible. And the idea of this is for it to be a layer that I can kind of chuck on in the summer instead of a jacket, and in the winter under a jacket. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. It was such a straightforward knit. I can really recommend this as a kind of recipe, if you like, to make your own raglan cardigan. It's so straightforward. So you basically knit, you start off with this many stitches, and then you knit back and forth the whole time, and then when you're increasing on your raglans, you start from kind of nothing on the front, and then you're increasing down, and it's just a really nice shape. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. And then when I put the button band in, the one thing I will say is if you're trying to make a cardigan that kind of comes together in the front and has that sort of crew neck style, obviously this wouldn't do that, but I don't really want that. So yeah, really enjoying this. It's not going especially quickly, that's totally fine. One thing I have done is I've added a little, I guess you could call it like a gusset in the back. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this. Oh yeah, you can. So right at the bottom here, in the centre, you can see that there's like a few extra increases. So there's like a triangle here. I am done with the increases now. I'm not going to be increasing any further. I just wanted to get to a point where it had a 2x2 consistently. But what I realised was I had gotten to a place where I was happy with the amount of fabric on the front and the kind of shape when I was wearing it, but I wanted a little bit more flare in the body, and so the way that I did that was in that centre back, you can see it there. I've just added a few more increases, and then I guess it sort of looks like a bit of a feature, but that's just so that it's got enough room in the body so that I can kind of pull it around myself comfortably without stretching the fabric out too much. Yeah, so that's a little self-drafted cardigan. I'm really happy with it. I'm very excited to wear it. It isn't going particularly quickly. Unspun projects for me don't go especially quickly, which is totally fine. I've talked about it before. I happen to knit relatively quickly, but only with certain combinations, and so yeah, I'm more than happy for this to take as long as it needs to take, and I really like it, and I'm very, very happy with it so far. Okay, last one, and this is the one I'm the most excited about. Alright, so again, if you've been anywhere near my Instagram, you will have seen this already, but I am making the Moon Crush tank by Jacqueline, and I don't know how to pronounce her surname, so I'm just going to say C. A wonderful size inclusive designer, very new to me, which my friend actually recommended, and I saw this design and was just like, oh my gosh, I absolutely have to make this. I will pop a picture of the design from the pattern here somewhere on the screen for you. I'm really, I love it. So I'm going to be making this, and then in the chatter segment I'll be talking about the sweater, which I will also be making shortly. It is worked flat from the bottom up, which is relatively new to me, but it is also how I am designing my first garment pattern. So it's really nice to see that more of that happening in the knitting community. I think working in the round is definitely simpler in a lot of ways. However, there are some quite distinct, for me anyway, I'm finding that there are some really distinct limitations to it in terms of fit. So yeah, I can't believe that's how I'm designing, but there you go. Bottom up in pieces. Who am I? So not finally, this has flown off the needles. I started it, couldn't stop, and I will be working on it again when I finish podcasting. This is the front panel completed. So because it is stockinette, it's rolling up on itself. So that's the actual sort of size of one armhole, and then if I unroll it, that's the size of the other one. So it is intarsia, which is also relatively new to me. I did make a little mistake on the colourwork chart right here, but it's fine. Yeah, so super happy with it. According to the pattern, I'm not going to talk about it too much because it is a paid for pattern and it is incredible and a lot of work's gone into it. So please do go and buy it if you would like to make this. I really think it's fantastic. I haven't added the neckline yet. So in the pattern you knit bottom up and then you actually add the front part of the neckline on. I haven't done that yet because the one thing that I'm not super convinced about is the way the neckband works. I looked at lots of other people's projects on Ravelry for this because there are loads and they're all fantastic. Like, I really recommend going, if you're a Ravelry user, go and look at the other people who've made this because it really is so inspiring. Some people have done some really awesome things. So there's one lady who's done like this middle, she's done a crop version and the middle stripe is this beautiful like sage green mohair and then cream, and it's so sophisticated. It looks absolutely amazing. So yeah, that was really helpful. But what I did notice is I'm not a huge fan of the way that the neckband sits, and a couple of people have commented on that as well and said it's a slightly strange, it kind of flops a little bit. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm gonna finish the back panel as well, and then before I do the armholes and the neckband, I'm actually gonna potentially decrease a little bit in the neck, or have a think about possibly a different neckline, just to make sure that it sits nice and flat on my neck. So yeah, haven't put the neckline in yet, but otherwise there's my first panel completed. Intarsia is so easy. If you are a person who wants to try intarsia and you're like, oh, it's really scary, because that was me, just do it. It's so easy. I don't know why I was worrying about it or putting it off for so long. If you've done that stranded colour work, it's significantly easier than that. That's all I'm going to say. Especially when you're only working with like 2 to 3 colours max, 2 to 3 balls of yarn max. So easy. So I can really highly recommend this pattern. It's fantastic. And it's just beautiful. I mean, look at it. It's going to be so cool when it's done. So that's the front panel. What yarn are you using, I hear you ask? So I'm knitting this out of cotton, which isn't something I do very often. I don't have an awful lot of cotton in my yarn catalogue, but I do have some. Some of it's gifted from the lovely cat, and some of it I bought for my previous attempt at garment design, which kind of went wrong for various reasons. So the colours I'm using are, these are the ones that I bought myself. These are Hobby Rainbow, fingering weight cotton, 100% cotton. In the colours, I think they've got numbers for their colours. Yeah, so the grey is colour 11, and the mustard is 72. So it's kind of a mustardy, greeny mustard. It's very much on the green side of yellow, this guy. So that's just an FYI. So those are the two hobby colours, and then this was gifted to me by the lovely cat, which is a this is the cotton. So I don't, and Kat doesn't necessarily either. Like, I don't really support wheel knitters. I have some thoughts and opinions about their ethics, but this was a colour and a yarn that Kat wasn't using, so she very kindly donated it to me actually while I was designing my summer knit idea last year. It didn't really pan out, and so I decided I was going to put it into this project. And basically, I mean, it's just such a good combo. Such a good combo. And this is not a colour that I would kind of traditionally wear by itself, so I think adding these in just brings it into merry colour palette land. So that is my Moon Crush tank by Jacqueline C. Sislak. I will ask how to pronounce it because I'm really terrible, and next episode, when hopefully this is finished, I'll be able to say it properly. I'm really bad with names, apologies for that. So I have started the second, just started the back panel, so that's there, and I'll be working on that later today. Alright, so that's all my whips, quite a lot of them, and 3 garments on the go at once. That's wild. There you go. And I'm also in the middle of designing my first garment pattern, which is really exciting. That is all of my current projects, and if you'd like to stick around and get into the chatter segment, I'm going to be talking about what I bought from the Wonderwool Wales show and who I bought it from, my plans with that yarn, and my experience of the festival in general. So if you'd like to hear about that, stick around, and if not, and it's not for you, not a problem, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so really quickly before I get into the rest of the chatter, I also wanted to just do a quick, very random shout out for this little chap here. So this is a counter ring from Knit Pro. It's not a fidget spinner ring, so the ones that you can just kind of go and the little rings will just spin round. You very definitively have to kind of click them round because it's a counter, so obviously you don't want it to move without you meaning to. But I've been using this a lot for my Moon Crush tank while I'm working on it, and I find it so helpful. So I just put it onto my thumb like this. They come in different sizes, and then I can click as I'm going. The way that I do it as well is I click it round when I've completed that row. So whatever number is on my finger, I'm currently working on the next number, if that makes sense. So that when I come to the project, I can see how many rows I've completed. I've been finding it super, super, super helpful when I'm keeping track of like 48 rows or something like that. It's very useful without needing to put stitch markers everywhere. So yeah, just wanted to shout that out. So Wonderwool Wales. Oh my word. Okay, so I went to Wonderwool for the first ever time. I live in Bristol, so I didn't plan to stay anywhere near the festival or anything. I drove on the day and I drove home again, which, to be honest, is kind of my first tip, if you like, is if you're going to go to a festival of that size, it's probably worth making a bit more of a trip of it, and staying nearby, which I definitely could have done if I'd thought about it more carefully. And I think I will probably go again next year, but do that, go with a few people, stay close by in like an Airbnb or something like that. There are yurts and things nearby that you can book and that kind of stuff. So I think I will probably do that because I ended up driving for a little over 4 hours in total by myself, and then had 4 to 5 hours there, and so overall it was just a really long day, and I was so tired when I came home because the actual festival itself, there's so much going on, it's amazing, it's massive, but because of that it was just really tiring. So that's kind of tip number 1, is definitely I should have planned to stay nearby, which I will do next year. Tip number 2 is there just wasn't enough food and drink provision for the number of people that were there. The queues were absolutely wild. I think we queued for about 40 minutes for a very average burger. So I went and I met up with a friend of mine there and we walked around together. So yeah, I think I did have snacks with me, thank goodness. But I think, yeah, next time I think I would probably have taken like an actual picnic, packed lunch type vibe. And then probably sat quite smugly and eaten it while everyone was waiting in the queues. So yeah, that's something to think about. I think I would actually take a big thermos of like tea or coffee with me next time as well, because even trying to just go and get a cup of tea was many minutes, if not hours, of waiting, which felt a little bit unnecessary. There are over 200 stands, so if you are only going for one day, it is humongous. So I'm really glad that I went with a plan. I am kind of pre-diagnosis ADHD, so impulsivity and particularly spontaneous spending is a real problem for me. So this was potentially a big danger zone. So I very intentionally made a plan of how I wanted to spend money if I was going to spend money, and I had potential projects that I wanted to use that stuff for, which was really helpful for me because there were a lot of things where it was like, ooh, and then I was able to say, no, I haven't made a plan for that. I did take a number of business cards down from different stalls, anyone that I was particularly interested in, thinking, oh, in future I might want to buy something from there, etc. I called a few of them out on my Instagram yesterday, but I wanted to, where have I put them? There were two in particular that I wanted to call out. One which I called out on Instagram, and one which I actually didn't because I forgot yesterday. But Mothy and the Squid, which is just also a fantastic name. They were really great. The stall holder was really fun. He had some great patter and was just very nice, very knowledgeable. Majority superwash yarn, so I will say that there wasn't as much non-superwash as I would have liked to see, if I'm honest, at Wonderwall. And as a rule, I don't buy a whole lot of superwash yarn. If I have a specific project in mind for somebody that I know it needs it to be superwash, then fine. But otherwise, I don't tend to use superwash yarns because I don't love knitting with them, just in terms of the feel of them on my hands. But the colours were fantastic, and they were one of the first stores that I kind of saw a couple of specific colourways and just went whoop, like kind of magnet went towards them. So yeah, I will say very, very cool. Mothy and the Squid. The other one, which was really lovely, was called Wee County Yarns. So they are yarns made in Scotland. They have a number of free patterns as well. So they also talk a little bit on the back of this thing about their how their yarns are produced. They have some really beautiful lamb's wool, and they also do they're not even mini skeins, I think. What do they call them? Mini balls. I'm such a child. Anyway, they had these little mini skeins, but they are wound into teeny tiny little cakes. In all sorts of different colours, and they're like £1.50 or £2 or something. And the great part of that was that they're perfect size to make a swatch. So if there's a project you have in mind, you can actually, and they have loads and loads of different colours, lots of solids and semi-solids. So lots of options. They do lots of gradient sets as well. So if you've got an idea in mind for a gradient project, they had some really lovely solids. And I just thought they're very knowledgeable, really nice. And I didn't get anything from them, but I took this because I think I probably will in future. Really lovely yarn. So, Wee County yarns. County, not country. Wee County yarn. Yeah, really lovely. So, purchases. What did I buy? There was one stall in particular, two that I knew that I was going to go to. And then there were some others that I wanted to go and see, and I wasn't sure if I was going to purchase anything from them on this particular trip. So I knew that I was going to go and see Marina Skua, who is a relatively local to me indie dyer who uses natural dyes and has some absolutely stunning yarns and patterns. She's a fantastic designer in her own right as well. But it was really cool to meet her in person for the first time and give her a hug because, again, we've sort of been peripherally aware of each other on the internet, and then it was like, oh look, a real person. So it was really nice. We had a chat, and I knew that I wanted to buy a few skeins of hers to make the Moon Crush sweater. So, it's pullover. In case you weren't aware of how obsessed I was with the tank already, I also have a plan to make the pullover, which is absolutely stunning. So it's got sleeves in 2 different colours, but very similar style with this beautiful intarsia. So I knew that I wanted to make this already, and I had a plan to make it in some slightly more neutral colours that would just go with absolutely everything. So I was thinking about getting, because I knew I'd need 3 colours, I did originally have a plan of maybe getting skeins from different vendors so I would be able to support more people. But basically what happened was Marina's colours were all so beautiful, and I knew that they would go together perfectly. And also from a gauge standpoint, I have noticed a little bit on this one that the We Are Knitters and the Hobby have very, very slightly different gauges, and I know that this pullover is going to be something I'm going to wear so much, so I just wanted it to be really consistent and look very polished. So I decided to get all the same yarn. So you can see them up here, but I bought these 3 colours in her Mendip 4-ply. Oh, look at them, they're so beautiful. I'm so excited. So the way that I'm going to do it is like this. So I will have one sleeve that will be white, one sleeve that will be green, and then this grey, and then this lovely navy blue will be navy blue up the middle. Yeah, so it's going to be really, really stunning. And this is her Mendip base. The sheep that provide the wool for this yarn live on an eco farm in the Mendip Hills. The yarn is spun in Wales and hand dyed in Wiltshire. Woolen spun. And it is super springy and squishy, and honestly, I just want to squish it. Yeah, really lovely. So very excited about that. As soon as I have finished my Moon Crush tank, I will be starting on the pullover. Yeah, very, very excited about that. So that was my first purchase. A big purchase is a sweater quantity of yarn, but I will say it was actually her yarn is very comparable with other indie dyers. So the other thing I really like about it is she does 50-gram skeins at like a really good price point. So buying 2 50-gram skeins is just as much as you would expect to buy from any other indie dyer. But doing the 50 grams means that you've got more flexibility about how much yarn you're buying, which I really, really like. And I think it's a much more conscientious way of selling yarn as well. So I really love that about her yarn. So yeah, we had a lovely chat, and now I get to squish her yarn, and it was just nice all round. The other person that I knew I was going to go and see was Steph from Woolen Witch, who is a local Bristol friend of mine as well, and has this amazing hand-dyed yarn company. I have a few skeins of hers from the past as well. I've made things with all of them at this point, I think. But I really love her colour sensibility is amazing. And I forgot that she did fibre. So I went to see her just to say hi and see what she had around. My friend Amy wanted to buy one of her how to use a drop spindle kits, which she got, and it is beautiful. So Steph not only dyes yarn and fibre, but she also actually designs and makes notions, and they're incredible. So I can really highly recommend going and having a look at Woolen Witch and her shop. I'll put the details will obviously be in the show notes, but I'll also put the name here. And she's just a really lovely human being. So we went to the stall, and I saw the fibre, and I saw the little shelf of fibres, and was like, and this one just, it was like a film moment when there was a little halo of light on it, just going, ah. It was like that. And I couldn't. It's like unicorn poop. Like, look at it. absolutely amazing. So it's 100% merino. I think it is absolutely stunning. And the only reason that I have not started prepping it to spin with already was because I wanted to keep it in this lovely bat to show you. But I will be prepping it probably later today and doing some spinning because it's just amazing. And this is what I mean about her colours. I mean, just look at it, like absolutely wild. So yeah, very, very excited about making some yarn with this. I don't actually know how heavy it is. It feels like it might be 100 grams. Yeah, I think it is 100 grams. Or 50. Either of the two would be amazing. And I'm gonna try and make fingering weight yarn out of it because I just and like imagine like a grey or a dark neutral with some colour work in this. Whoo! Very exciting. Yeah, so this is the first colourful fibre that I've had since the black and red that Kat gifted me a long time ago, which was kind of my first foray into spinning properly. So yeah, I'm very excited about this, and it's so squeaky. Yeah. So those are my purchases from Wonderwool. Yeah, I mean, as an experience, it was incredible. There were some really, really impressive artists, jewelers, ceramicists. I got to see real live sheep, which is always really fun. There were some very majestic Jacobs and two little mohair kids and their mum, which was really cute. Mohair goats, if you haven't seen them, they are adorable. They've got this incredibly curly white locks. Yeah, they look really goofy, but they're very cute. So that was really fun. The venue itself, a couple of things to say. They have a lot of provision for accessibility, but you would need to tell them that ahead of time. The car park is very far away from the actual venue itself. There's a lot of walking involved. So if you are somebody who struggles with walking but doesn't necessarily have, accessibility needs, and I say that in the sense of if you don't consider yourself to be a person who needs accessibility provision, just keep that in mind. There is a lot of walking. There is not anything like enough seating throughout the venue, so it's quite hard. Like, I didn't sit down the entire time that we were there. I think we hoiked ourselves onto a wall briefly to eat our burgers, and that was the only time that we sat down for 4-ish hours. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that there's not a lot of seating. And the layout of the actual venue itself is quite confusing. There isn't. One of the things I would have really liked would have been to have a fairly obvious lap to do, where I know I've gone round and I've definitely seen everything, because that would have ideally been what we would have done, is to go around and do a lap of the entire venue, see everything, and then make decisions about the things we want to go back and buy, because I feel like that's just a very kind of logical, but it also means that you've given everybody a little bit of attention. And there'll be some stores that just don't have the things that you're interested in, and you'll skip them, and that's fine. But yeah, it felt a little bit difficult to, I didn't feel like I'd seen everything. I felt like I was missing. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I've maybe missed some. And it's big. I mean, it's 200 odd vendors, so if you are only there for one day, you want to make sure that you've got your money's worth and you've seen everything that there is to see. Yeah, so overall, it was really, really lovely. The stewards were amazing. But yeah, I think it was, from a layout perspective, not ideal. Definitely not enough refreshments. The individual vendors were all lovely and amazing. But yeah, it's quite an overwhelming atmosphere. So one of the things that I also didn't take with me, which I feel like I probably should have done, was I have earplugs that allow me to still kind of be present. I can still hear everything, but it just takes the volume level down. And I wish I had taken those, because there were points where, when the tannoy came on, it was so loud, and obviously there's a lot of noise and talking and lots of voices. And for me, I get quite overstimulated quite quickly with lots of like multiple conversations happening at the same time, and of course it was just that constantly. So yeah, that would be another thing that I would take. So yeah, I took a knitting project and didn't have anywhere to sit down and actually knit, which felt odd that there wasn't like a place to sit and relax while you were there. It was very much you have to be walking around and standing at all times, which I felt was a bit of an oversight given the nature of this particular festival as well. Like, you are talking to crafters who by definition mostly sit down to do the thing that they love, and you could see people walking around with clearly project bags and just absolutely no ability to sit anywhere to relax and work on them. Yeah, so that was really my only kind of gripe, was there not being that space to sit and relax. But otherwise, it was really lovely. Everyone was super friendly. Yeah, it is in the middle of Wales, so it's quite a drive and lots of little country A roads to deal with, which if you're stuck behind a particularly slow person, can be a bit problematic. But I grew up in the Cotswolds, so I'm really used to that. So that didn't bother me too much. I'm more than happy to drive, but I do think if I were to go again, I would definitely travel with people next time, and probably stay so that I can enjoy it a little bit more and not feel like, oh, I need to leave now because it's going to take me 2 odd hours to get home. But yeah, overall, absolutely lovely. Quite overwhelming, so it's good to have a group of people and be able to just dip in and out as you need to. And next time I would definitely take a little picnic and a picnic blanket and stuff, and and stay over. But it was lovely, and massive congratulations to all of the vendors who were there, because absolute chaos. I can't imagine how tiring it would be to run a stall at one of these places. Oof. But yeah, it was a really great experience, and I got some beautiful things. Got to talk to a bunch of people. I also met Ria Burns Knits in real life. She's a Bristol-based natural dyer and educator, and has these beautiful kits and pre-mordanted yarn for you to kind of experiment with natural dyes. She also runs some workshops at No Frills Knits, which is here, No Frills Knitting, in Bedminster and Bristol, which is run by Meg. Yeah, she does some natural dyeing workshops and stuff there. So it was really great to meet her in real life as well, and see her her actual knits that she's made. Her samples are beautiful. She had a number of garments and items for sale as well, which, had I had more money in my budget, definitely would have been taking some of them home. But she was also super lovely, so that was nice to meet her in person. I got to see Creative Anarchy, who was also there. She was super busy chatting to people, so I didn't want to bother her, but it was really lovely to see her stall as well. So yeah, it was nice, really nice, especially to see people that you have that you've been following for a long time. That was really good. I will say it's in Wales and the southwest, therefore cultural diversity maybe wasn't what it could have been. But that's a general problem in the knitting community, isn't it? There are some absolutely incredible UK-based dyers, and I don't know about yarn producers, but definitely dyers, who it would have been lovely to see. I don't know, there aren't very many of them, so maybe they just weren't available, all that kind of stuff. But there was a bit of a cultural diversity moment for me. But outside of cultural diversity, actually, there was a really lovely cross section of people. So there were your more traditional grandma knitter types, and there were lots of young people, which was really great to see. Not as many as I might have liked, and I think that's partly because of where it was. But yeah, it was nice to see lots of different people wandering around. I actually bumped into somebody from my childhood, who I haven't seen in about 15 years, who I grew up with in the Cotswolds. So that was weird, but lovely. So it was great. I think there are obviously things that could be improved on, But ultimately, I'm really, really glad that I went, and I think that probably ends the chatter segment for today. So thank you for sitting with me and listening to my rambling away, as always, regardless of what you are doing for yourself this week or in the coming months until I talk to you again. As always, move slow and make things.